This story is not just about infidelity. It is about what betrayal does to the mind when it comes from the people you trust most. A pregnant woman, already carrying grief, discovers that love was weaponized, loyalty was staged, and silence was used to control her reality. But instead of breaking under the weight of loss, she begins to reclaim power through truth, evidence, and a courage born from devastation.
7 months pregnant, I oversaw movers in our Seattle penthouse. Our estate lawyer called, his voice tight. You need to come down to the office, Chloe. Please, alone. We found a secured digital vault. I left the movers, my heart pounding. Seeing the file with Leo's digital signature, I knew his secrets would shatter my life. I'm glad you're with me now. Let me know where you're listening from. I love hearing from all of you. For transparency, this story blends fact and fiction to protect everyone involved. Any likeness to real persons is coincidental. The raw emotion, though, is entirely real. It started with that phone call. I was picking out nursery furniture almost a year after Leo's death. A year of waking up to the cold emptiness beside me. A year of faking a smile when I was falling apart. This simple task was a relief until the phone rang. A wave of guilt hit me for wanting to ignore it. But my gut screamed to answer. The caller was David Chen, our family lawyer. His message was short and chilling. Mrs. Maxwell, I need to see you today, and I must insist you come by yourself. A cold dread crept up my spine. I stared at the cheerful furniture catalog and felt my stomach turn. I grabbed my keys, hurried out, and dialed him back. David, what's going on? I tried to keep my voice even. His tone was professional but strained. I found something in Leo's digital estate. You need to see this. Only you. Is there a problem? My mind spun with worst case scenarios. No, but he paused. I believe your husband intended for this to be private. Please come down. He hung up. Leo had left something just for me. The elevator descent from our condo felt endless. My knuckles were white from gripping my purse. What secret could Leo possibly have? And why did David sound so grim? Leo died from a heart attack on a business trip. He was 40, a tech genius, and obsessed with his health. We had built Aether Logic together with his partner Isabel. Why would he hide a thing? The silence of our home now felt heavy, suffocating. David was waiting for me in his building's lobby, his expression stern. The main probate filing isn't the problem, he murmured. He guided me into a stark conference room. The usual thick binders of estate documents were gone. In their place was a single secure tablet. Someone was trying to breach this recently. Do you recognize this vault? I just shook my head, my throat suddenly desert dry. Beside our shared assets was an encrypted server account I'd never seen. David highlighted a line on the screen. The login attempts were flagged. Someone tried to force access 3 days ago. When they failed, it triggered a full security lockdown, which alerted me. Someone else knows about this. David nodded. And this vault? It's not for you. It lists another beneficiary. Do you want me to leave? Yes, please stay. My hand shook as I touched the screen. It unlocked to a summary page. A single name was designated as the primary recipient, and beneath it, a note in Leo's digital script. For Chloe, if necessary. I held my breath and opened the file. It was just a preliminary access folder. Inside were automated payment logs, a list of assets, and one sealed digital letter marked Read First. A beneficiary was listed on the account. It was the name of my best friend, Isabel. David took a step away. This is a private matter. I'll be right outside if you need anything. He left, the door clicking shut, and I was alone. The room felt cold and sterile. I could almost feel Leo there, waiting for me to uncover his awful truth. With a trembling finger, I opened the letter. The first sentence was a knife in my chest. Chloe, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've learned Isabel is carrying our child. The air left my lungs. Isabel, my Isabel. This was a nightmare, a terrible, impossible nightmare. My phone vibrated in my bag. I clumsily pulled it out. It was a text from Isabel herself. Thinking of you? Lunch next week to finalize nursery ideas? The timing was a cruel, twisted joke. I looked back at the digital trust, outlining a life I was excluded from, and the letter I had just started. Whatever Leo had done, it was massive enough to hide in an encrypted vault. Someone else knew, and now I had to find out why. I sank into the cold leather chair and forced myself to continue. My phone buzzed again. I ignored it. This was more important. I whispered his words to make them real. Chloe, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Isabel has been my mistress for 2 years. Over $1 million is in this vault for her. She created it using our firm's venture capital funds. I have proof. But it is so much worse than money. She planned to push you out. She had drafted documents to dissolve your shares in my estate. She faked internal emails from you to suggest you wanted to sell your stake. I confronted her back in May. She threatened to ruin everything. I agreed to the fund because she is my partner and I couldn't let this destroy our company. She didn't stop. She demanded more. By August, I knew she was a threat to us. This letter explains it all. The access code is the name of the place where we almost gave up. If you are here, it means she tried to get the money, triggering the security alert. I was meeting our lawyer, Mr. Peterson, the day after I died. I should have told you immediately. I was trying to protect our family. That was my fatal mistake. Everything you need is in my files. Finish this for me. I love you, Leo. P.S. Do not trust her. My own best friend had siphoned almost $500,000 from my husband and was setting me up to lose it all. My husband, Leo, had found out. He had spent months documenting her scheme, all while sitting across from her in meetings pretending. He died the night before he was going to expose her. The doctors called it a sudden, tragic cardiac event. But now I knew the stress must have been a trigger. A heavy, sickening feeling washed over me. A simple heart attack seemed too convenient. I pushed the thought away and looked at the access logs. The transfers were all there, time-stamped in cold, hard data. I scrolled through them, my hands shaking. Almost $50,000 a month. A mix of wire transfers and shell company payments. Leo must have been tracking it, trying not to tip Isabel off. Below the logs was a folder of legal documents. I opened them. 4 years of partnership contracts, each with a single clause highlighted in red, right next to the name Isabel Vance. Leo had filled the digital margins with his notes, calculations, legal questions, and circled phrases. On the final page, he had typed in, bold, total loss, $482,000, and rising. A small black data key was labeled in his neat handwriting, for Chloe the proof. I put it aside and saw the last item he mentioned, a digital receipt with a note, Pacific Secure Storage, Unit 401. He had a storage unit I never knew existed. A quiet knock on the conference room door made me flinch. Chloe, is everything all right? It was David, our lawyer. I realized I had been sitting there for almost an hour, my entire body numb. I just need a minute, I said, my voice cracking. David stayed in the doorway. The vault is on total lockdown now. The network is secure, ma'am, but you should know it was pinged multiple times this year. He offered me his card. If this escalates legally, I can provide the complete access logs. I saw the records, the exact timestamps of each attempt. Thank you, David. He gave a small nod and left, his footsteps fading down the quiet hallway. I was alone with the proof of my best friend's treachery. I drove home with the documents on my phone. It was past 2 p.m. Hours had passed since I had arrived at his office. The city seemed completely muffled. At home, I inserted the data key into my laptop, and the password prompt immediately appeared. I typed our anniversary, June 10th, 2015. Access denied. Leo's words from the letter echoed in my thoughts. The password is our greatest struggle, the one we never mention. Our private pain. What shared hardship did we have that Isabel could never possibly know? By midnight, I had tried 30 different passwords. Every single one failed. I had gone through all the logical options, my fingers growing stiff as the hours ticked by in the silent apartment. Only the screen's harsh light illuminated my face. Anniversary June 10th, 2015. Denied. My birthday, May 20th, 1988. Denied. Leo's birthday, November the 4th, 1983. Denied. Our street name, Bellevue Way. Denied. The company name, Ether Logic. Denied. Clara Marcus. Marcus Clara. Every guess was rejected. The Seattle zip code 98109 rejected. I was spinning my wheels. Another try, another failure. Summit, Horizon, Sophie. Each failed word felt like a fresh wound. By 10 at night, my ideas were exhausted. The blinking cursor was a taunting pulse on the screen. I fought the urge to destroy the laptop, Marcus's last secret. The screen's glare hurt my eyes as I leaned away. His favorite Seahawks mug remained untouched next to me. Nothing of his had been moved. His coat still hung over the chair where he left it. These were simple pieces of our broken life. I saw the note from his drawer again. The key is our silent loss. A sorrow, not a start, not a joyful memory. What was the one secret pain we had borne together in complete isolation? The clock read 11:30 in the evening. Too late to be up, but I needed help. I picked up my phone and dialed Jenna. We met at the University of Washington, friends from 2008 to 2012. Jenna was my anchor, especially at Marcus's funeral. She was the only person who could help me navigate this. She answered after 3 rings, her voice groggy. Clara, it's nearly midnight. Jenna, I have something. Marcus left a secure file. I need your help. Can you get here? Her voice sharpened. Are you safe? Is your network clean? I'm fine. I just need you. Be there in 20. She was only 15 minutes out, but always budgeted for delays. Jenna was a cybersecurity analyst, precise by trade. The bell chimed at 12:05, exactly as predicted. She was 41, her blonde hair pulled back. Divorced, no kids, and fiercely protective. She wore an old UW Huskies sweatshirt. All right, she said, scanning the room as she locked the door. Tell me everything. I pointed to the encrypted drive. I showed her the clue, the strange expenses, and Marcus's perfect ledgers. She studied his coded message, her face a mask. After a moment, she met my eyes, her look intense. Sophie? You mean your sister, Sophie? I could only nod. $800,000 over 3 years? Jenna let out a quiet breath. This wasn't just scheming, Clara. This was a systematic exploit, a deliberate siphoning of money. That devious... Jenna cut herself off, which was rare for her. I respected her bluntness. I made a hollow, exhausted noise that wasn't quite a laugh. We sat at the table, the password, our silent loss. What did you try? I showed her my list. She scanned it. Clara, these are all celebrations. Your marriage, buying this place, the company's first big contract. She pointed to the note. He wrote, loss. What is the one private tragedy you two shared with no one? Her look softened. Not even with me. My chest tightened. Marcus only ever spoke of one event like that. A hidden sorrow we kept from everyone. My family, Sophie, and especially Jenna. My voice was a whisper. I know it. Jenna moved closer. Tell me, I couldn't speak it yet. First, I have to see the data, the proof. She backed off immediately. She was a true friend. All right, she said gently, let's see the trail. We moved the legal pad and opened the drive. 3 years of transactions appeared, a clear record of deceit. Aura Innovations, March 2021, $7,500. Jenna read the first flagged payment. She looked at me. Is this a legitimate contractor? I slowly shook my head. It's not a name I recognize. For 3 years, it was the same story. Aura Innovations for strategic outreach. Aura Innovations for platform synergy. The pay never changed. The descriptions were meaningless, and each payment was just below the $10,000 audit trigger. Just corporate jargon. Jenna honed in on the name. Aura. Wasn't that Sophie's senior project at UW? She married David in 2019, the year before this began. Jenna took out her phone, launching the calculator. The sum grew quickly. 200,000, 500,000. She placed her phone on the table. $810,000. Marcus was right. My mind reeled. It was over $20,000 monthly for 3 years. Our tech startup builds urban planning software. We pull in maybe $30,000 a month from our biggest client. Jenna pointed to an entry. What did she do for this? Nothing. Sophie never met a client. She barely came to the holiday parties. Jenna opened another file. So where did the payments go? I indicated an account number right there. Marcus had flagged it in red. We looked at his note. Act 74, C. Ora. Sophie's private investment fund, per bank records, not a company expense. Jenna sat back, her expression hard. She wasn't working. She was stealing. I agreed, feeling ill. Marcus had left notes. The earliest one was from August of 2022. It said, invoice source unknown, verify with S. He suspected something then, but his real investigation started in November. He checked the state business registry, nothing for January. By April 2023, he found fake contracts. The notes grew frantic. After confronting Serena in October, giving her till the new year to pay it back, they turned cold. The last was from May 2024, meeting with Davenport June 3rd. He had all the proof. He died June 1st, 2 days before he saw his lawyer. The words blurred on the page. He was so close to exposing her. Julia touched my shoulder. He did the hard part for you, Eleanor. He handed you the whole case. I sat in stunned silence. Julia's voice became sharp. All business. I vet vendor shells for a living. I can check Vance designs from here. Is that possible now? She was already typing. These corporate databases are always active. Tomorrow morning. Wait, it's Tuesday. I can have the filing details in minutes, she said. If it's real, it has a registration, a tax ID, a business address. If not, it's a phantom. And that's wire fraud, Eleanor. For this much money. Her voice trailed off. If she stole this, it's a massive federal offense. The quiet in the room was heavy. Eleanor, Julia said, pointing at the final figure. If she did this, she's facing serious jail time. But she's my sister. She's a thief who was gutting your husband's firm. I had no defense. Julia highlighted a section. Marcus gave her from October 2023 to January 2024. The record shows she never paid back a dime. She just created more false receipts. Julia looked right at me. He gave her a chance to fix it. She chose to dig deeper. I saw the ledger, Marcus's precise handwriting, the circles around every fraudulent transfer. My own sister had funneled nearly $900,000 from his life's work. She made up a supplier, and when caught, she expanded the lie. What do I do now? I whispered. Julia's reply was firm. Tonight, I'll confirm the corporate status. By noon, we'll have definitive proof, and then you hire counsel. Marcus noted a Mr. Davenport. Call him first. Should I contact him now? Yes. But wait for my confirmation that Vance Designs is a sham. Present him with a complete file. I nodded, feeling a wave of exhaustion. The clock on my laptop read 1:52 a.m. Julia signed out. You need to sleep. Call me as soon as you're up. I'm okay. You go home. Are you sure? Positive. Her image vanished. I was alone with the evidence. 38 months of betrayal. $810,000. My sister's envy laid bare in neat columns. At 2:03 a.m., my phone buzzed. A message this late? It was my mother. Catherine. A single text. Can't sleep. Thinking of you. Did you get a chance to go through Marcus's office computer? Call me. I reread it. 2:03 in the morning. She was asking about his laptop. Why now, 10 months after his death? A sudden curiosity about his work? I didn't answer. I just took a screenshot. A sickening feeling settled in my stomach. I managed maybe 2 hours of sleep. At 7:30 a.m., my phone rang. My mother. I drew a breath and picked up. Mom? Catherine's voice was falsely cheerful. Eleanor, darling, just checking in. It was the first time she'd called in a month. She'd been so cold since the accident, creating a chasm between us. I always thought she blamed me for not seeing his distress, for not saving him. How are you holding up? Catherine asked. The business is stable. The talk felt hollow and rehearsed. Then she asked, have you started to sort through Marcus's office computer, his business files? A warning bell went off in my head. Why are you asking? Catherine hesitated a moment too long. It's been 10 months. Organizing can be healing. I've begun looking at a few things, I said carefully. Her tone sharpened. The company financials or just personal items? Both. Is there something I should be looking for? A long pause followed. No, Catherine said. It's just if you see anything strange, any payment issues, you should really ask Serena first. She has a real knack for that side of the business. My grip tightened on the phone. You think I should ask Serena about Marcus's vendor accounts? She was his lead designer. She'd recognize a fraudulent invoice right away. My mother was pushing me in a specific direction. For some reason, what was she covering up? I'll think about it, I said, my voice flat. Wonderful, I have to run. Talk soon. The call ended. No warmth, just a click. I stood there, phone in hand. The timing was too perfect. A text at 2 a.m., a call at 7:30 a.m. about Marcus's files. Was someone coaching her? I looked at his study closet, at the old briefcase on the shelf. The clasp was loose, not fully shut like I remembered. When had I last opened it? I couldn't recall. Maybe last year, looking for some tax forms? Or was that before? I checked the study door, no signs of a break in. But anyone with the building's main code could get inside. Family would know it. Serena had been here 100 times. She knew the floor plan, our schedule, and the code for the private elevator. Marcus had mentioned the briefcase clasp was jammed a month ago, in late October. I had doctor's appointments 2 or 3 times a week. The penthouse was empty from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. on those days. Ample time for someone to visit. At 9:30 that morning, a text from Serena popped up. Hey you, thinking of you, miss our talks. We need to do brunch. Her chipper tone felt like an insult. Our last real conversation was at his funeral 9 months ago. We had been so close. Serena was 5 years younger, 34 to my 39. The cherished baby sister. She married a quiet software developer, Ben, in 2016. No kids. They lived on the waterfront. She'd been Marcus's design consultant since 2018, a role I now understood was a complete fiction. I read her text again. Two things were clear. The timing was calculated. Mom at 8:15, Serena at 9:30. My sister had not reached out in months, but now she wants brunch. They were working together. One of them, or both, worried I was getting close to the truth, I replied, choosing my words. Sounds lovely. How about Friday at 1 p.m.? I had to see her face, to watch her lie. Serena's answer was immediate. Perfect. That new place on Newberry Street. Can't wait. The exclamation points felt desperate. Just one more act in this sick play. I texted, see you then, and put my phone down. She had no clue I'd found the hidden ledger. She didn't know about Marcus's private journal. She was unaware I knew about the $658,000 she had stolen. She could think I was still grieving, oblivious. I would play my role. At 10 a.m., Julia called. I'm at the office. I ran a check on Serena Interiors LLC. It was created in November 2017, 1 month before she began working with your husband. A knot formed in my stomach. Julia's voice was low. It's registered solely to her, Serena Vance. No employees, no office, just a P.O. box in Quincy. It's a shell, Eleanor. It existed only to send fake bills to your husband's company. Julia paused. Eleanor, this was premeditated. She set up the holding company before she sent the first wire. She planned this from the start. Yes. The line was silent for a bit. I could hear the distant Seattle traffic from my lawyer's office, a world away from my quiet house. What is our next move? Fiona asked calmly. I need to call that forensic accountant, Mr. Davies, the one Leo was scheduled to see. Do you want me on that call? Not yet, I replied, but it's approaching. After hanging up, I opened my laptop to the encrypted ledger I'd found. Project Nightingale. Over $1 million in payments. Leo had that meeting set for March 1st. He suffered a fatal heart attack on February 28th. I found the accountant's number. 3 days later, I watched Leo's business partner, Isabel, walk into the cafe, her smile as bright and engineered as ever. I had claimed a corner table at 10 minutes to 1, wanting to watch her entrance. The Capitol Hill Bistro was buzzing with a Thursday morning crowd. The air smelled of dark roast and toasted bagels. A low thrum of chatter was all around me, broken by the hiss of an espresso machine. I wanted a moment to see Isabel without her professional mask. At 2 minutes to one, she swept in, a new designer clutch under her arm. Was that bought with her executive salary or with Leo's stolen million? Her black hair was cut in a severe, expensive bob. She had on a tailored blazer over a silk blouse and dark trousers. Every detail was deliberate and perfect: the leather pumps, the understated gold watch, the flawless makeup. She looked like a woman who had absolutely nothing to hide. The smile that appeared when she spotted me was brilliant and rehearsed. She moved through the tables and gave me a brief impersonal hug, her cloying perfume surrounding me. "You look worn out," she observed, holding me at a distance to get a better look. "Are you getting any rest?" I gave her a small smile. "It's been difficult." We slid into the booth. A waiter with a kind face came over right away. I requested a decaf tea. Isabel got a double espresso. "So?" Isabel began, her hands folded neatly on the table. "How have you been really?" "Coping," I said. "The estate is keeping me busy." She nodded with well practiced sympathy. "It's so good to have something to focus on. That really helps." Then the empty pleasantries started. We talked about the endless Seattle rain, how dreary the city seemed. We discussed the holidays. Did I have plans? Would I attend the firm's party? Isabel was hosting a small dinner at her condo with just her, her husband, and another couple. I was welcome to join them. "I'll consider it," I told her. She leaned closer, her voice dropping into a concerned whisper. "I spoke with the board this morning. They mentioned you haven't been answering their emails. They're starting to get anxious." "Grief doesn't follow a fiscal quarter, Isabel," I said, my voice flat. "I know that." She put her cool hand on my arm. "I just hate to think of you there in that huge house, all by yourself. It's so much for one person to handle." "It's fine," she said, her tone a little too comforting. "You know, if you ever decide the house is too much, Carter and I can help you find a buyer. The market in Queen Anne is incredible right now." She suggested, "A nice condo downtown would be a fresh start." Was she trying to get me out, to distance me from my late husband's studio and all his work? I sipped my tea. "I'm not ready for that, but thank you." I caught a brief flash of annoyance in Isabel's eyes before she smiled. I changed direction. "I was curious about that Nightingale project you were managing for Leo. You were the lead consultant on that, correct?" "For a time," she said, her finger tracing the rim of her cup. "I shut down my advisory work last year. The overhead was getting too high for the returns." "What was your exact function?" Her answer was smooth as if memorized. "I handled artist sourcing and market forecasting. I managed gallery negotiations, curated collections for corporate acquisitions, and developed their long-term buying strategy." "Did you have access to a secure digital inventory?" I asked. "Limited for cataloging purposes. Why are you asking?" Her tone was light, but her gaze grew more intense. I kept my voice even. "I'm just trying to create an inventory of Leo's entire collection. I've started combing through his digital files, trying to get it all organized. The volume of documents, appraisals, auction histories, insurance policies is unbelievable." Isabel's hand, which had been adjusting her scarf, froze. Her body tensed slightly. "You're going through his business files?" "Yes, old acquisition agreements, private sale authorizations, payment records. Leo saved everything." "Discover anything notable?" she asked. I gave a small shrug. "Just a lot of financial documents that are hard to decipher without knowing the full story." Isabel set her cup down and leaned forward, her face a perfect mask of sympathy. "If you need a professional eye, I could stop by. I know how those private art transactions are put together. I could help you sort through everything." "That's very generous." "No, Maya, I'm serious," she insisted, her voice earnest. "Some of those sales records can look unusual if you don't know the history of the piece. I would hate for you to misinterpret something and worry over nothing." There it was, asterisk, misinterpret asterisk. She was afraid I would perfectly understand her fraudulent deals. "I will keep that in mind," I said. I changed the subject, my tone intentionally casual. "Oh, speaking of the house, the oddest thing occurred." The climate control system in the art vault malfunctioned last week. Isabel's eyes met mine for a short exposed moment. The climate control? That sounds like a big problem. Not really. The technician who came said the main power line had been cut. He said it looked like it was done deliberately. Oh, she took a long drink of her espresso. It is an older house. The systems are likely just starting to fail. Possibly, I said. But the truly strange thing was the protective canvas in front of Leo's private vault was crumpled, as if someone had dragged something heavy over it not long ago. Isabel placed her cup back on its saucer with extreme precision. Did you move it? No, I've barely set foot in the studio. Her smile seemed fragile. Leo must have moved it before he. The technician looked at the service logs. The system was manually shut down for 3 hours about a month ago. He was certain of the exact date. How strange. I watched her digest the new information, seeing a hint of alarm she quickly concealed. Did the technician notice anything else? She asked. He pointed out some deep gouges around the vault's keypad, as if someone had tried to pry the faceplate off with a tool. Isabel's expression became an unreadable slate. That is terrible. Do you suspect a break in? I'm not certain. There was no sign of forced entry to the house, but I plan to upgrade the entire security system with additional cameras, just in case. An excellent plan, she said, a bit too eagerly. You should definitely do that. Carter can even recommend a system for you. He knows all about that kind of technology. I'll look into it. The topic shifted. Isabel asked about my parents, wondered if my sister was coming to visit, and inquired about my new role at the museum. The conversation fizzled out over the next 15 minutes. There was no admission, no crack in her composure, but her guilt was plain to see. The way her hand had stopped moving when I mentioned the digital files, the overly smooth, vague summary of her consulting job, the immediate offer to help me to manage what I saw and what I concluded, the warning not to misinterpret things, and finally the visible alarm about the vault's system failure. Her tension when I described the damage, the overly enthusiastic offer to help install new cameras, to know precisely where my blind spots would be. She wanted what was inside that vault. She was the one who had attempted to get in. She was the one who had been inside my home. At 2:35 we were done. I settled the bill. Isabel made a token effort to object, but I dismissed it. We walked out into the cool, damp afternoon. The sky was a uniform, heavy gray. Isabel gave me a final hug, her embrace feeling rigid and foreign. Call me any time, you hear? She said with forced warmth. I worry about you. I will, I lied, the words feeling like dust in my mouth. We went to our separate cars. I got in, shut the door, and just sat there, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Isabel was intimately involved. Every moment of our lunch was a confirmation. Her eagerness to explain the archives, her reaction to the vault tampering, her sudden interest in new security. She was trying to get out in front of whatever I was about to find, to shape the narrative. She had been in my house. She had tried to get into Leo's vault, and now she knew I was on the verge of discovering why. I started the engine and drove off, my mind racing. I was pulling into my driveway when my phone chimed with a new email. It was from an untraceable address, with no name attached. The message was a single short sentence. Some collections should remain private. Stop looking into your husband's business. I stared at the words, my heart hammering against my ribs. I forwarded it to my lawyer, Fiona, then sent a text. Just received an anonymous threat. It arrived right after I met with Isabel. Her reply came back immediately. From whom? No idea, but the timing is no coincidence. Fiona, she's panicking. I have a copy of this, she texted back. This is critical evidence. Save it. Done. I was sitting in my parked car, staring at my front door. Someone had been in my home. They had tried to crack my safe. And now they were sending warnings. First thing tomorrow, I was calling the forensic accountant, Julian Croft. The man Marcus was scheduled to see. This had gone on long enough. The next day I stood before a historic townhouse on Beacon Hill, with a small brass sign that read, Croft Financial Forensics. I took a steady breath and entered. A calm receptionist, with a kind smile, looked up. Miss Thorne? Mr. Croft is ready for you. She led me down a quiet mahogany lined hall to a corner office with a view of the street. Julian Croft stood to greet me. He was in his early 50s, with silver flecked hair, a tailored suit, and a steady, intelligent gaze. He shook my hand. Miss Thorne, I'm very sorry for the loss of your husband, Marcus. I just nodded. He had an appointment scheduled with you. He did, Croft confirmed, his voice somber. He told my assistant he had proof of significant fraud and needed to see me urgently. We set it for October 12th. He died on the 10th, I know. I regret he was unable to attend, Mr. Davies said, gesturing to a chair. You said on the phone you had discovered something. I have what he planned to show you. I set my tablet before him. On the screen, I opened the secure drive. Marcus's last message to me was on top. Mr. Davies reviewed it silently. Below it were audio files and bank records showing transfers to shell accounts. To $220,000 to Emerald City Ventures, $105,000 to Cascade Consulting. I told him the drive was on a dead man's switch, unlocked 30 days after Marcus died. Mr. Davies was methodical, writing on a notepad. He gave it his full focus. After a review, he spoke. Your husband was meticulous. He documented the entire fraud. Mr. Davies searched his own system. $515,000, Cascade Consulting. The principal is listed as Sophie Dubois, your sister. Yes, my sister, it's a front. It has no business history or assets, only a name. The payments were for tech consulting she never performed. Marcus offered her a chance to pay it back. She refused, and the affair was leveraged to silence him. Mr. Davies gestured at my tablet. These recordings are damning. Are they original files? Yes, they're direct copies from his cloud backup. Mr. Davies stippled his fingers. Here is where you stand. You have strong proof. The statements show the embezzlement. The recordings show he meant to report her. What's the problem? Sophie will claim the money was a gift between lovers, that this is a story made up by a bitter, pregnant wife. Without the forged invoices, it becomes her word against a man who can't testify. A chill went through me. Mr. Davies' voice was even. For a civil suit, you're in a good position. For a criminal case, we need more. The audio mentions fake emails and work orders. That's the key. Otherwise, she can argue Marcus was mistaken, that the money was for off-the-books work. These family disputes are never clean. You need undeniable proof. So if I can't find those files, I'm stuck? You face a serious challenge. She could get away with it. The room was silent. Mr. Davies watched me. How is your relationship with your sister now? I thought we were inseparable. I thought she was my closest friend. This is going to be the hardest trial of your life. Deceit is a poison, and I had been drinking it for years. Are you ready for this? I could still feel Claire's hand on my pregnant belly at the gala, her eyes full of false sympathy. She was sleeping with my husband while systematically draining our accounts. She didn't just want our money, she wanted my life. I'm ready, Marcus said, his voice firm. We can't prove her actions caused David's car crash, but with that evidence, we can prove embezzlement. It's a federal crime. She'll face prison. For how long? It could be up to a decade. The words felt heavy in the quiet office. I showed Marcus a message from Claire. She sent this after I questioned the budget overrun on the ARIA project. He read her veiled threat, his expression hardening. This is from her phone? The timing is too perfect to be a coincidence. He handed my phone back. This changes our timeline. She knows you're suspicious. She'll start shredding evidence. So what's my next move? Find that master drive. David said it held everything. Check for hidden files, a clue only you would understand. I nodded. The second I have it, I'm calling you. We'll bring her down. Excellent, Marcus said, his eyes sharp. And one more thing. Do not contact her again. Don't respond, don't ask questions. Your silence is your most powerful weapon now. Understood. He stood and offered his hand. The case is nearly complete, but we need that final piece to move forward, he stated, his grip solid. Thank you, Mr. Thorne. Call me Marcus and Amelia. Your husband did the heavy lifting. He built the entire case against her. We're just here to see it through. In my car, I stared at my laptop, Marcus's words circling in my head. A clue only you would recognize. There was only one secret project David and I shared, the internal code name for his first award winning building, the Meridian. That night, I searched David's home office. If he said the drive held the key, the clue had to be in this room. I glanced past the usual financial binders and security fobs. My eyes landed on the scale model of the Meridian Tower, his first masterpiece. I ran my fingers over the miniature plaza and felt it. One of the tiny sculpted trees was loose. I gently twisted it, and a small panel in the base clicked open. Inside was a tiny custom USB stick. Taped to it was a small label with David's neat printing, Meridian Project Master Key. My heart hammered against my ribs, a second layer of security completely offline. He must have kept a physical key separate from his digital world. It was a failsafe. If Claire ever compromised their network, he needed something she could never find. A physical token was brilliant. I immediately called my sister, Olivia. I found it, a physical key. What? A key to what? Hidden inside his Meridian model. The password has to be the Meridian Project. I'm on my way. We do this together. But it's so late. What if it's a password, Ames, not a bomb? Put the coffee on. I'm coming over. 20 minutes later, Olivia arrived. Her face a mask of worried determination. She handed me a steaming cup. You look like you haven't slept in a week. I haven't. I know. Let's find out what that snake was really up to. We stood at my kitchen island, the glittering lights of the Chicago skyline spread out before us. The beautiful view was a stark contrast to the ugly secret on the screen. I initiated the decryption software. A field appeared asking for the master key. I typed Meridian Project Master Key. The encrypted partition unlocked. It was a catalog of her crimes, invoices she had forged, fabricated email chains between David and their clients, and a meticulous spreadsheet tracking every single dollar she had moved. It was all there. Her cover was blown. This was a blueprint of her betrayal. I scrolled through the files, a cold red washing over me. Olivia put a hand on my shoulder. Oh, Ames, I'm so sorry. The fraud went back almost 2 full years, 2 years of calculated theft. I drew a ragged breath. When did he figure this out? I checked the metadata on the files. Last modified October 3rd, the day before the crash. David knew. He was getting ready to expose her. He knew, I whispered. He knew everything she was doing. The final file in the directory was a draft email addressed to Marcus Thorne. All the evidence is compiled here, it read. I am prepared to take action. The proof was absolute. I opened the main directory, 72419, and the contents appeared. The folder was pristine, with perfectly labeled files. The only sound was the low hum of the city and a lone car passing on the street below. We stared at the screen. Folder D, document 241. Olivia and I saw the password prompt, a simple digital barrier. The key from the label worked perfectly. My fingers trembled as I clicked OK. Olivia squeezed my arm. We can face whatever is in here, Amelia, together. I could only nod, my throat too tight for words. I hit the enter key. The folder opened. I double-clicked, and the file list populated, the sound sharp in the silent apartment. The process seemed to take forever. The directory was small, just 5 documents, maybe 10 pages each, mostly text. 4 main files were at the top, named and dated in David's organized, familiar way. File 1 was named Apex Design Fake Invoices. File 2 was labeled Network Forensic Analysis. File 3 was Financial Bleed Report. File 4 was Amelia read this first. Olivia breathed out slowly beside me. God, he left nothing to chance. File 4 is for me. We look at that one first. We opened the document. It felt intensely private. I had to read David's last message to me. I had to know what he wanted me to do. I double-clicked the file, my pulse roaring in my ears, before we looked at anything else. We sat in the dark of the office as a thick Chicago fog rolled in off the lake, blurring the windows. I focused on the screen. I launched File 4. The document appeared instantly. It contained three items: a link to David's private design journal, the icon instantly familiar. It was the software I had bought him for our anniversary. A second link pointed to a secure server labeled his way, the vault, same key, and the final subfolder titled Forgeries from Amelia's Trust. Olivia pointed at the journal link. That's his personal log. He wanted you to read his thoughts before you saw the evidence. I clicked on it, my hand shaking. David's words filled the monitor. The entry was dated March 15th, 2024. It said, "Something felt wrong today. An invoice from Apex Design Solutions crossed my desk for $55,000. When I questioned Claire about it, her explanation was a mess of corporate buzzwords. I'm making a note to follow up. March of 2024. David suspected her nearly 2 years before he died. I met Olivia's gaze, unable to breathe. He was investigating her from the very beginning. We stood there in the quiet study, the city lights a faint glow, as I read his log aloud. March 15th, 2024. Saw a bizarre invoice from Apex Design. 55,000 for synergistic material sourcing. I asked Claire for the details. She started talking about optimizing procurement and leveraging contacts. It sounded almost plausible, but I don't recall her being involved in that phase of the project. I'm going to watch this. July 9th, 2024. Two more payments to Apex have been approved. The total is now over $200,000 this year. I demanded a full report from Claire. Which suppliers, which projects, the exact savings. She got hostile, said I was micromanaging her. She promised a complete breakdown, but it never came. November 30th, 2024. I searched for Apex Design Solutions in the State Business Registry. It was incorporated in 2022. The registered agent is Claire Monroe. There are no other officers listed. The address is a mailbox rental store in Evanston. This firm isn't real. She's stealing from us. I had to end the call. My banker's voice was a flat drone. May 2023. That's when it started. More than a year before I even got pregnant. My hand shook as I clicked through the digital statements. January 2024. I reviewed the last 2 years of our joint finances. Over $300,000 paid to Vance Strategic Solutions since mid-2022. I made a few discreet inquiries to contacts in the industry. No one had heard of Julia's company. The consulting was a phantom. This was embezzlement. April 2024, the setup, Julia came to my office, her face a mask of concern. She presented a file of invoices, supposedly approved by my assistant, for wire transfers to an unknown vendor. She claimed she'd found the discrepancies during a review. She said it was unbelievable, but the paper trail was solid. I glanced at the documents. It was my assistant's name, her digital stamp. But I know my team. This isn't her. The second Julia was gone, I pulled the network access logs. The approvals were routed through IP address 192.168.5.20. That IP is assigned to Julia's executive terminal. I know because I helped Marcus set up his company's network. My office IP is on a completely different subnet. Julia forged the documents. She was trying to frame my assistant for the crime she was committing. She wasn't just stealing from our family. She was trying to ruin an innocent person to protect herself. A cold sickness churned in my stomach. I couldn't look anymore. My hands were trembling too violently to use the mouse. Julia's voice was a venomous whisper. She wanted him to think your own team was crooked. My voice was a choked whisper, and Marcus never said anything. He just went along with it. I wiped a tear away and forced myself to keep searching. July 2024. I found 3 major vendor contracts from the last year. My signature was on each one, granting authorization. But I never signed them. I asked Marcus about those vendors during dinner, trying to sound casual. He had no idea who they were. I examined the digital signatures. They were high-resolution images copied and pasted onto the files. Julia had forged my name. October 3rd, 2024. I found a saved email draft today. From Marcus to Julia. He laid out all the evidence against her. She'd replied, admitting to a massive debt from a failed investment. She begged him not to tell me, claiming the shock would be too much for me and the baby. He gave her a deal 1 year, repay every dime by October 2025. Get her finances in order. If she did, he wouldn't tell me. Why did he do it? Because Julia is my cousin, and he thought he was protecting me from family heartbreak. I read the next line. My heart stopped. October the 10th, 2024. I still haven't told Elara she's been so happy, so focused on the nursery. Our tech firm just landed the Redwood account. She's finally glowing again, truly glowing, for the first time since her father passed. How can I tell her that her own cousin has been bleeding us dry and tried to frame her assistant? How can I destroy that peace? If Julia pays it back, Ilara never needs to know. Isabella could have her secrets, and I could have my grief. This was a weakling's path, I knew, but I couldn't shatter her illusions, not after losing Liam. My eyes burned as tears fell. Julian took my hand, his grip steady. He was protecting you, he murmured. He shouldered this alone for your happiness, to spare you this agony. I looked at the letter again. October 9th, 2023. Chloe asked if I was okay tonight, said I seemed distant. I blamed a tough project. She's glowing, obsessed with the nursery plans, discussing hiring another architect. The truth would extinguish her joy. She would be utterly broken. I can carry this burden longer. January 20th, 2024. Isabella has paid nothing, just offered more lies. She's still cooking the books. I was a fool to believe her. My meeting with Julian Vance is set for the 23rd. I'll tell Chloe after that. I'm done protecting Isabella. January 22nd, 2024. His final words. The writing was jagged. Seeing the lawyer tomorrow at 10, this whole charade finally ends. Chloe, my love, if you find this, I am so sorry. Forgive my secrecy. The password is Santorini 2018. The trip where we began. It is all in the vault. Use it, get justice. I love you. L. I folded the heavy linen paper. We were in Julian's Boston office. I must have drifted from the conference room with Julian following. My feet felt disconnected. Santorini 2018, he said softly. The key is your honeymoon, the place where it all started for you too. We never told anyone about that trip. He had left a secure access key in the envelope. My hand was now ice cold and steady. Let's see what Liam left for me. I sat at Julian's computer and inserted the key. A login prompt filled the screen. I carefully typed SANTORINI2018. I exhaled and hit enter. The prompt disappeared. One folder appeared. IR_financial_review. It held over 200 files, all perfectly labeled. 01_invoices_Veridian. 02_altered_comms. 03_forensic_audits. 04_signature_forgeries, and so on. Every folder had a brief written by Liam, an architect obsessed with detail even when exposing my best friend. Julian breathed out. He prepared a whole case for you. I clicked the first folder. 42 PDFs loaded. I picked one. Invoice_Veridian_July_2021.pdf. It was professionally designed, with a sleek logo, Isabella no doubt created. Invoice number VIC 2021-008. Client Sterling Architects for consulting and material sourcing. Amount due $11,000. Signed Isabella Rossi, CFO. I checked the file properties. The metadata was a casual confession. Author Isabella Rossi. Device Isabella's Mac. Created July 10th, 2021. Payments were always sent the day after the invoices were made. Julian pointed at the screen. She used her personal computer for everything. She made no effort to hide her digital trail. It's like she never thought she would be caught. I opened Liam's analysis file. Quote payment_forensics.xls. A flawless spreadsheet appeared. Every fraudulent payment was cataloged with metadata. Creation date, author, device, and amount. All 42 invoices came from the same digital source, made by one person on one machine, hours before submission. I clicked on the Communications folder. Inside were 68 emails. They were conversations between Isabella and her ghost company. I opened a recent one from October 2023 from Viridian Imports. It said, "Per our agreement, November's sourcing is complete. We've secured 3 new stone suppliers and negotiated 2 new lumber contracts. The invoice is attached. The total due is $16,800. It appeared legitimate, professional, detailed with an invoice, but Liam's subfolder had a single file. Quote, network_analysis.pdf. My fingers trembled as I opened it. The report showed IP logs and server data. The finding was clear. Every email from Viridian originated from IP address 192.168.1.55, the same IP for all 68 messages. It was the public address for the cafe near our studio, where, Liam had noted, Isabella began every workday. The supplier's incorporation was the same day as its first bill. Isabella paid a company that hadn't existed a day earlier. Julian just shook his head. It was careless. One IP address for the entire fraud. She gambled that her proximity to us was enough cover. I navigated the files, my pulse racing. The third folder tracked the money, showing funds moved from our firm to Viridian Imports, then to a Cayman account in Isabella's name, ending in 5821. Each wire was sent within 48 hours of a new invoice. Liam's notes were attached. He typed, "A simple shell game, just enough layers to obscure the trail." The fourth file, Forgeries, contained 14 items. On the left was my valid signature from our 2019 business agreement. On the right were forged versions on project approvals from 2022. The forgeries were good. A slight tremor in a loop, a change in pressure. A report from a Boston forensics lab concluded with 92% certainty that the signatures were fraudulent. The expert cited digital replication and tracing methods. I saw my own name faked on the papers. It felt like a deep personal trespass. She used my identity to conceal her theft. The fifth file held her personal expenses. Liam's notes said he found it on the server where Isabella had mistakenly saved it. He had copied the contents. It showed bank statements from luxury brands and 5-star resorts. Her spending vastly exceeded her salary. The 3-year total was a staggering $400,000. The motive was pure greed. File 6 had the digital evidence. PDF metadata and server logs. Every false invoice was created on Isabella's laptop. She even used her own credit card for the shell company's website in 2021. All emails to the fake vendor were forwarded to her private account. The last file, number 7, was labeled Statement. It was one audio file, ls_final_entry_jan_2 2_2024.wav. My hand hovered over the trackpad. Julian asked softly, "Do you need a minute?" "No," I said quietly. "Please stay." I clicked play. Liam's voice filled the quiet room. I could see him in his office, recording this late at night. The file was from January 22nd, 2024, one day before the crash. I hit play. Liam's steady voice cut through the silence. "This is Liam Sterling. It's January 22nd. I am recording this as a precaution. Isabella Rossi has stolen over $400,000 from our firm using a shell company. I have ironclad proof on this server. She also forged Chloe's signature on 14 payment authorizations to cover the fraud. Forensic analysis confirms the forgeries came from her computer." I confronted her in November. She claimed she was in dire financial trouble. I gave her until January to start repaying. She has returned nothing. She's falsified more documents since then. I delayed involving authorities because she is Chloe's closest friend. I wanted to resolve this quietly. I now realize that was naive. She has earned no such consideration. I am meeting with our lawyer, Julian Vance, tomorrow. If anything should befall me, Chloe, if you are hearing this, use everything here. Make it right. The recording stopped. The only sound was the faint hum of the city outside. My phone buzzed against the table, a text from a blocked number. I heard you saw Julian. We need to talk. Don't do anything you'll regret. I. It was Isabella. Julian glanced at the message on my phone. She's starting to panic, he noted. I saved a screenshot. Something more for the case file. What will you do now? He asked. I'm going home. I'll wait for her there. The doorbell chimed at 4 o'clock that afternoon. The camera showed Isabella on my front step, holding 2 coffees. Her white convertible was parked on the street. She wore a cashmere sweater, and sunglasses were perched on her head. The designer handbag she favored was on her shoulder. One coffee was her usual oat milk latte. The other was likely a decaf for me, for the baby. She smiled at the camera, lifting the cups like a peace treaty, then pressed the bell again. I saved the video clip, took a slow breath, and opened the door. Chloe, her voice was smooth as honey. I hope I'm not interrupting. I was nearby and wanted to check on you. You went silent after our last chat, and I got worried. She glided inside, setting the drinks down, before wrapping me in an embrace that reeked of expensive perfume. I hugged her back, my expression neutral as I shut the door. I'm okay, I said, accepting the drink she handed me. Just exhausted. You know, all the nesting and getting the office ready for my leave. I can't even imagine. She trailed me into the living room and sank onto the couch. That's why I came by. I was thinking about what a terrible year this has been. Losing your dad, the stress of the business, trying to manage all his estate affairs. I sat across from her, taking a small sip of the juice. It was lukewarm. Elara, can I be completely frank? She leaned in, her eyes wide with manufactured sincerity. I am concerned. I feel like you're not seeing everything clearly, and I think Marcus left things in a bigger mess than you know. What are you talking about? She took a moment, staring down at her glass to compose her next lie. This is so difficult, but you have a right to know. Marcus wasn't himself at the end. Not with the company, he loved that, but with his situation, with his life here. A pit of ice formed in my stomach, but my face remained a calm facade. Where is this coming from, Julia? He told me things. We were family for so long, you know. He trusted me. She slid her hand across the table to cover mine. He said he felt trapped. He was thinking about a change, maybe even suggesting a separation for a while. I gently pulled my hand away and took another drink, using the moment to control my rage. Marcus never said a word about that to me. He wouldn't, she cooed, her voice dripping with fake pity. He didn't want to hurt you. But Ilara, he was burning himself out. He was at the office constantly. I found him there late one night, just weeks before he died, looking like a ghost. He told me he was working on something big, a plan to restructure everything, maybe even dissolve the partnership. Dissolve the partnership? I asked, allowing a slight tremor in my voice. What would that mean? He said it was necessary to secure the company's future. He said he had personal entanglements to sort out. He made me promise to keep it quiet until he figured it out. She watched me intently, looking for a crack in my composure. I showed her nothing. So why are you telling me this now? I asked. Because I don't want you to be blindsided. I'm not sure what Marcus was planning, but he was meticulous. If you find any of his private financial records or investment files, you have to let me see them before you talk to a lawyer. His notes can be a little cryptic without context. That was why she was here. I haven't found a thing, I said smoothly. I cleared out his desk weeks ago. Just old menus and vendor lists. What did you expect I'd find? Her perfect smile faltered. Mark was so thorough. If you find any of his old concept journals, call me before you do anything, okay? Why would a journal be an issue? She gestured vaguely. You know Mark, obsessed with budgets. He'd second guess every purchase I made, even ones he'd signed off on. It was maddening. I feigned sympathy. He did seem stressed about costs, something about a new wine supplier from California. Her hand paused, teacup hovering midair. Wine supplier? I said lightly. He mentioned some invoices felt wrong, about $250,000 worth over the last year. He was having our bookkeeper investigate, but he never got the chance. The warmth vanished from Genevieve's eyes. Her cup clattered against the saucer. I don't remember that. Are you certain? Absolutely, I replied, meeting her stare. Sound familiar at all? No. She stood quickly, adjusting her silk dress. It was likely Mark being paranoid as usual. I have to run. A table of investors is showing up at 8. I saw her to the door. She stopped and gave me a stiff hug. Clara, please, she whispered. For Mark's legacy, for the restaurants. Don't go digging through his things. You won't like what you find. I'm trying to protect you. From what? She recoiled, fear flashing in her eyes before her professional mask returned. From unnecessary heartache. She walked to her convertible and drove away. I shut the deadbolt and pulled out my phone to call Daniel. He picked up instantly. Daniel, it's all here, I said softly. The private journal, the fake invoices, the hotel folios, everything. And Genevieve just left. She's running scared. It's time. A short pause. Meet me at my firm at 10 a.m. tomorrow. Bring the journal, the logins, all of it. We'll present it to the estate lawyers before the week is out. I'll be there. Right. And Clara, no more communication with Genevieve. Understood? Perfectly. I hang up and delete the camera footage of her visit. Tomorrow at 10, I'm handing Mark's brother evidence of a $700,000 embezzlement, and my husband's partner is about to lose everything. The doorbell chimes at 11 on Tuesday, hours before my meeting with the lawyers. A bike messenger is on the security screen, holding a stiff legal mailer. I buzz him in, sign his tablet, and take the envelope. The return address is a law firm in Atlanta I don't recognize. I lock the door, photograph the unopened package, then slit it open. Inside are 3 pages of thick, watermarked paper, with the law firm's crest embossed at the top. I lean against the counter and begin to read. The title was in bold: Demand to Cease and Desist, and Return of Intellectual Property. My name and address were below, followed by dense paragraphs of legal threats. The firm was representing Miss Genevieve Monet regarding the Charleston Restaurant Group. We have been notified that you possess proprietary business materials, including concept journals and exclusive supplier contracts, which were removed from the business premises. These items are the sole property of the company, per the partnership agreement of May 2017. We demand the return of all culinary development notes from 2019 to now, all private supplier agreements, and all digital communications related to vendor procurement. Failure to comply within 7 days will trigger a civil suit for theft of trade secrets, with damages estimated at over $1 million. Any leak of company information to outside parties will be pursued as slander. Acknowledge receipt and arrange for the return of these materials. The signature was an illegible scrawl over a bar association number. The letter was dated 2 days ago, the day before Genevieve arrived with croissants and a performance full of lies. It all made sense. She sent the legal threat, heard nothing, then showed up herself to try and charm the evidence out of me. She's trying to paint me as the unstable widow out to destroy his legacy. Her move was swift. I snapped photos of each page, sending them to Davies with a message. Just received from Natalie's attorney. See you soon. His response was instant. Perfect. Don't reply. 1 o'clock. At 1 p.m., I entered his office suite, armed with my evidence. The burner phone, Arthur's black notebook, a stack of bank records, and the lawyer's letter. Davies reviewed the demand first, a faint smile playing on his lips. He set it down. This is desperation. Beautiful. They're trying to sue you over your own husband's private records. It's absurd. He gestured at the letter. As his spouse and executor, you're entitled to every file he had. More importantly, criminal evidence isn't a protected asset. Corporate privilege can't conceal a felony, and you can't slander someone with the truth. This is purely to scare you. What's our next step? We wait. Let them panic. He slid a secure device to me, and I unlocked the phone's contents. Let's see what Arthur found. For the next hour, Davies analyzed the texts, cross-referenced the notebook, and matched fraudulent invoices to a hidden ledger Arthur maintained. He paused on one line, jotting on a notepad. Your husband was careful. He knew she would try to erase everything. She would have, I said, my voice thin. Davies closed the notebook. This case is Ironclad. We're talking multiple felonies: grand larceny, bank fraud, and conspiracy for forging Arthur's name on loan documents, plus tax evasion. The charges felt heavy in the air. What kind of jail time is she facing? He looked at me directly. With this evidence, 10 years is a real possibility. With restitution, maybe probation, but that's a long shot. If a jury convicts on everything, it's 5 to 12 years. Natalie's entire future gone. I expected to feel satisfied, but I just felt weary. She was family to me once. Mr. Davies must have seen the conflict in my eyes. He shut his laptop, tented his fingers, and met my gaze. Clara, there is something else. He opened a slim portfolio and slid a document across the table. It's a title from the Cook County Recorder's Office. Natalie co-owns her Lincoln Park townhouse with Mark. That's normal. This, however, is different. He tapped the paper. A shell corporation, NR Properties, was formed on June 10th, 2024. June, just weeks after Arthur's accident. NR Properties is the owner of a penthouse condominium on the Gold Coast. Unit 47B, acquired on August 1st for $4.1 million, paid with a series of wire transfers. He let the words hang in the silent room. Over $4 million wired to a ghost company while you were planning a funeral. I struggled for air. She bought a secret penthouse. Exactly. And that's not the worst part. She used our company's money to do it. A massive apartment bought with funds drained from your own development firm. He pulled up digital renderings on a monitor. A stunning residence with floor-to-ceiling views of the lake. A private terrace. Her signature is the only one on the deed, naming her the corporation's sole director. She left a perfect digital paper trail of the crime. Can we get it back? Without a doubt. Illinois state law on asset forfeiture in fraud cases is very clear. We will make it a condition. The $4.1 million she stole, the surrender of her shares, and the immediate transfer of the penthouse to you. She will walk away with nothing. The company, the money, and the home she bought with my husband's work, it all comes back to you. I stared at the screen. A palace in the sky paid for with the life she helped destroy. When does she get the offer? I asked him. Tomorrow morning, he said. We'll send an encrypted package to both Natalie and her fiancé, Julian. It will contain a draft indictment for the U.S. attorney, but we hold off on filing. If she agrees to our terms within 48 hours, it goes away. If she refuses, the feds get it. If she accepts, she dissolves her shell company, signs over the deed, repays the cash, and agrees to a permanent no-contact order. In return, we drop the criminal complaint. She has to take it. The alternative is prison. I pictured Natalie opening that email, her carefully constructed world crumbling around her. I wanted to feel victorious, but I was just exhausted. Do it, I whispered. Mr. Davies nodded, closing the portfolio. It will be sent tomorrow. She has until Friday to decide. I collected my things, the phone, Arthur's notebook, the files, and walked into the chilly Chicago evening. My phone buzzed as I neared my car. An unknown local number. I almost ignored it, but some instinct made me answer. Mrs. Vance? A man's voice, tight with anxiety. This is Mark Peterson, Natalie's husband. I have to talk to you about what she did. I think she made me a victim too. Thursday morning, December 21st. I sat at my island with tea and returned Mark Peterson's call. He picked up immediately. Mark, you said you were a victim. What did Natalie do? His voice was strained. A few weeks ago, I discovered a hidden folder on our server. It was a loan application for a $250,000 line of credit, opened in my name. My digital signature was on it. But you didn't sign it. I had never seen it before. I checked the signature file against my driver's license, our mortgage. It was a flawless forgery. Almost perfect, but it wasn't mine. The angle of the M, the way the P ended. She copied my signature. I closed my eyes. Mark, I am so sorry. I've already moved out. Then your lawyer's firm called about some penthouse. I was floored. She never mentioned it. She hid it behind a shell company. Illinois is a marital property state. Legally, half of that is yours. That's the thing. I didn't know it existed until a paralegal left a message about asset seizure. He let out a shaky breath. Mrs. Vance, Clara, I'm calling to let you know that I will be your star witness in court for a deposition, anything you need. She stole my identity. She lied to me through our entire marriage, and I was too blind to notice. Thank you, Mark. I should have questioned it. The constant business trips, the expensive gifts from silent partners. The way she would shut down if I asked about our finances. I trusted her. I'm done with that. I conferenced Mr. Davies into the call. His voice was steady and professional. Mr. Peterson, can you come to my office this afternoon? Please bring the digital files you mentioned and any other relevant financial records. Yes. 2:30, excellent. We will see you then. At 2:30, Mark Peterson walked into the conference room with a laptop bag, looking utterly defeated. He was in his 40s, with a good suit that was now wrinkled and worn, an architect or maybe an analyst, a man used to order. He booted up his laptop and showed the documents to Mr. Davies, a loan application from last September, with Mark's forged electronic signature at the bottom. Mr. Davies studied it, then compared it to a real one Mark had. He nodded grimly. It's the same method she used on Arthur's documents. She copied a clean signature and pasted it onto the PDF. The file compression hides it from a layman, but a forensics expert would spot it instantly. She wanted the credit line, $250,000. She probably called it seed money for some fake venture. The statements went to a dummy email address you never saw, and she used that cash to help buy the penthouse. Mark's hands clenched on the table. If this goes to court, do I have to testify? Yes. But first, can you be available for a preliminary hearing? Perhaps next week. I'll be there. She needs to answer for what she did. To Mark, to me, to our baby. After the lawyer leaves, Daniel turns to me. This note destroys her whole story. It confirms this was all planned. The theft wasn't one bad choice, it was her entire business model. I just nod, feeling numb. The woman I thought was my friend didn't just steal from us. She systematically plotted to ruin the man who built her career. That night around 9, the gate buzzer rings. The camera shows Caroline, Mark's mother, clutching the same cashmere shawl she wore to his funeral. Her hands are shaking as she buzzes again. I let her in. Caroline, I need to talk to you. We sit at the kitchen table, the epicenter of so many family crises. I pour her a tea she doesn't touch. She keeps her shawl on. Genevieve called me. She was hysterical. Said you hired some shark of a lawyer, that you're telling people horrible things, that you're trying to ruin the business. Did she mention what she did? She said it was a business dispute, that Mark was disorganized with the books, that her consulting fees were approved. That's what she's saying. Do you want to know what actually happened? Caroline just glares, her expression unreadable. I take a deep breath. She funneled $750,000 through a shell corporation over 18 months. Mark kept immaculate records. She created a fake wine import company, sent phony invoices, and wired our working capital to an account in her name. She bought her condo with it. My mother-in-law processes this. I go on. The money isn't even the worst part. She forged Mark's signature on a dozen payment authorizations. She created a false paper trail to make it look like he approved payments to a vendor that didn't exist. If Mark hadn't kept his private journal, I would be the main suspect. She was positioning me to take the fall. No, Genevieve wouldn't. She already did. Mark found out. He gave her a chance to pay it back quietly. She didn't return a dime. Instead, she faked more signatures and put a down payment on a place at the beach with the money she stole. Caroline's composure finally shatters. I helped her with that. I co-signed the loan, hundreds of thousands of dollars. She called me crying about an inheritance being tied up in probate. I thought I was helping her. You were financing her escape plan. I see that now. A tear traces a path down her powdered cheek. She was always the one Mark worried about, the one who needed more help. You were always so capable, so strong. I guess Genevieve just felt like a daughter. She's a professional con artist, Caroline, and she was ready to throw me to the wolves to save herself. Caroline closes her eyes. The girl I loved like my own is a monster, and I helped her. You didn't make her forge your son's name. A few weeks ago, Caroline says, her voice barely audible, before the accident, in January, Genevieve stopped by. Her new boyfriend wasn't with her. She seemed so on edge. She told me Mark was getting erratic, making huge undocumented withdrawals. She said she was worried he was taking money from the company. She was preemptively framing Mark. Not in so many words, but she was laying the groundwork. She told me if Clara ever asks about strange expenses, tell her to talk to me. I'll sort it out. We can't have her getting upset in her condition. She was building her alibi in advance. Any questions I had, she would dismiss as a simple mistake made by my erratic husband. That's why I called you that day. I was worried about the business. I thought I was being a good mother in law, but I was just playing into her hands. A heavy silence filled the kitchen. Then Caroline's voice, suddenly sharp, cut through it. What do you need me to do? The absolute truth. A deposition about the loan and what she said about Mark that day. If this goes before a judge, you will have to testify against her. She was like a daughter to me. And I am carrying your grandchild. Caroline stared down at her lap for a long moment. When she looked up, her eyes were like steel. She stood by and let my son die with his name being tarnished. She tried to convince you that you were crazy. That isn't a mistake. That's evil. My love, for so long I've made allowances for that woman. Poor decisions, a troubled youth, financial troubles, so I loaned her more money. I never made her face any real consequences. But trying to sabotage your marriage is unforgivable. She squeezed my hand. I will give a deposition. I will appear in court. I will do anything you need. This could destroy your relationship with Julia for good. She destroyed it herself when she went after my son in law. I am choosing my daughter. I'm choosing you. We embraced and wept together. Shortly after my mother left, my phone buzzed with the name David Chen. I answered on speaker. Mrs. Thorne, my counterpart, is ready to meet this Friday at 10 a.m. Mr. Thorne's legal counsel. They are prepared to negotiate a resolution. I called my own attorney instantly. He wants to settle. Excellent. This is precisely the outcome we anticipated. What if this is just another maneuver? Let him try. We have it all. The investigator's report, the offshore account statements, the hotel security photos, the condo lease, Marcus's own written confession, and now your mother's statement. He's completely cornered with nothing to rely on but his own pride. On Friday, we will finish this. Thursday, December the 5th, the day before, David's office felt like a command center. Sarah, David, and I rehearsed our strategy for the meeting like a legal team prepping for a major trial, leaving nothing to chance. On the large conference screen, our evidence was laid out in 4 digital folders. Harrison, my lawyer, navigated through the files. Folder 1, fraudulent invoices, 35 of them from a shell company, all traced back to Mia's work computer, siphoning over $500,000 in 36 months. Folder 2, digital trail, 74 damning emails from her burner accounts, and the service logs to prove it. Folder 3, forgery, 12 architectural proposals with side-by-side analysis showing Julian's signature had been digitally manipulated. Folder 4 was the personal stuff, receipts from 5-star resorts totaling $200,000, scans from my husband's desk calendar, and surveillance shots of their secret condo in Sausalito. Harrison's laptop was open to an audio file, Julian _ final _ message _ November _ 2025.mp3. 3 minutes and 40 seconds of my husband and my sister. Tomorrow we stay disciplined, Harrison said, pointing to the screen. We start with the corporate fraud, pivot to the affair, then play the audio. Miss Reed will try to settle fast, but I'm going to make her listen to every last detail. Once she knows it's indefensible, she'll force her client to fold. What if Mia just denies it all? I whispered. She'll try, Harrison assured me, but Reed is pragmatic. She'll see this for the unwinnable disaster it is and push for a settlement to prevent total ruin. Then Sophie asked the question I couldn't bear to. What's the absolute worst that can happen? Harrison didn't hesitate. She rejects the offer. We file for divorce Monday. The story hits the trade publications. Her career is over, and we sue her for every asset anyway. She loses everything. Best case? She agrees to our terms tomorrow. A $5 million settlement is wired within 90 days. She signs over all contested properties and agrees to a permanent non disclosure agreement. We hold the filing. If she ever breathes a word of this, we burn her to the ground. Harrison opened the file and slid a document to me. Your aunt stopped by this morning. She left this for you. I grabbed the envelope. It was 3 pages on official letterhead, stamped with a notary seal. My hands shook as I read. I, Margaret Albright, swear that between May 2023 and January 2024, I loaned my niece, Maya Vargas, over $30,000 for a supposed art buying trip for her firm. I now realize this money was used to finance an affair and a lifestyle she couldn't afford. In December, Mia warned me that Julian was under extreme stress at his architectural practice. She told me to call her first if he seemed off, to avoid worrying Elena. It was all a lie to keep me from discovering her relationship with my friend's husband. I am horrified to have enabled her deception and will testify to it. The words blurred. She actually did it, I breathed. It's devastating for her case, Harrison said softly. It proves Mia manipulated a woman who was a mother to her. No judge would look kindly on that. The office intercom crackled to life. Mr. Harrison, it's David from the Russo Gallery on line 2 about tomorrow's meeting. Harrison hit the speaker button. Mr. Russo, what's on your mind? David's voice was tight with stress. Can I be there tomorrow? Harrison looked at me, and I gave a slow, deliberate nod. Your testimony would be powerful, but Miss Reed will try to block it. Are you ready for that? Why would she? She'll claim you have no legal standing in a divorce, that your presence is meant to antagonize. A private family matter. And our response? That you're a material witness to Mia's pattern of manipulation, using the exact same methods on you as she did on Julian's company. It speaks directly to her character, it's relevant, and she knows it. Can she stop me? Not a chance. Reed will object for the record, but you'll be allowed to speak. The only question is if Mia and her lawyer can take the heat. Good, David said. I want them to see the chaos they've caused. Harrison permitted a thin, grim smile. Be here at 9:45. Bring the falsified invoices she had you approve. I'll bring you in right after the photos when tensions are highest. I'll be there. After the call, Harrison turned back to us. Here's the plan for tomorrow, 10 a.m. Julian, Mia, and Reed will arrive. Reed will open with a pathetic offer, which I will immediately reject. We will walk them through the financial crimes, piece by piece, then show them the images from the cloud drive, and finally bring David in for the final blow. We'll give them a moment alone. Then they either accept our terms or we walk. But what if he's not thinking straight? I asked, my voice trembling. His attorney will be. Reed's entire job is damage control. Once she sees our evidence, she'll tell him to take the deal. Sophie glanced at me. What do we do tomorrow? You are here for support and to witness the signing, Harrison explained. Elena says nothing unless I signal her. I will do all the talking. She will only speak to have the last word. What could I even say? I wondered aloud. Anything you need to, he said firmly. They tried to destroy you. You've earned the right to have the final say. I couldn't sleep that night. Everything was about to change. I found myself in Julian's home office, where I'd first discovered the hidden drive. His desk was immaculate except for the small audio recorder he used for work. The last file was titled for Elena. He knew this day was coming. He'd left me a map. I'm going to finish this, I promised the empty room. Just then, my phone lit up with a text from Sophie. You were made for this. Julian is with you in spirit. A moment later, a message from Margaret. I am so proud of you. Whatever happens, remember that. Nothing from Mia. She was likely with Reed, rehearsing her lines for the role of a lifetime. The victim. Friday came. It was 9:47 a.m. I stood outside Harrison's building on the Embarcadero with Sophie right by my side. The chilly San Francisco fog whipped at my face. The brass sign read Harrison and Associates, Family Law. Sophie caught my gaze. Ready. I thought of Julian. I thought of my sister's betrayal, the years of lies, and the new life growing inside me. I remembered the secret condo and his last recorded words, asterisk, finish what I started. Yes, I said, my voice steady. Let's finish this. We walked through the heavy glass doors. Right now, we are on the precipice of the moment my life either shatters or begins again. Before we go inside, just type the word finish below. A quick heads up, the next part gets intense. If that's not for you, this is your exit. You're still here? Excellent, let's do this. 10:02 a.m. Friday, November 5th. Our wedding anniversary. I sat to Harrison's right in the conference room, Sophie beside me. One chair on our side was empty. Across the table, two more were vacant. The door swung open. Miss Reed came in first. Late 40s, perfect suit, an expression like she knew she was walking into an ambush. Mia followed. She saw me and froze. Her eyes were puffy and her makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion. She wore a power blazer, a flimsy costume, but her hand trembled as she placed her bag on the table. Elena, Mia began, her voice thin, can we please just talk? Alone? Before my lawyer Harrison sliced through her words. No, everything from this moment forward is on the record. He motioned to the chairs. Please sit. Her lawyer, Miss Reed, flipped open a notepad. Mia couldn't stop staring at me, searching for a sister who no longer existed. Harrison adjusted his tie. Before we start, we have another party joining us. Mia's brow furrowed. Who? A sharp knock and the door opened. My husband Julian walked in. The color drained from Mia's face. Julian, what are you? He wouldn't even look at her. He took the empty seat beside me, set his phone on the table, and said nothing. You can't do this. This is a private. Miss Reed was already on her feet. Objection, Mr. Harrison. This is a marital settlement. Mr. Croft has no standing here. Harrison remained seated, completely unfazed. Mr. Croft is the primary victim of corporate fraud perpetrated by your client, his own project manager. Her crimes here establish a clear pattern of deceit. Pattern evidence is for a courtroom, not a settlement table, which is exactly where we're headed if we don't resolve this today. Mr. Croft is prepared to file separate criminal charges for her forging his signature on dozens of corporate expense reports. Her actions here prove she has a history of defrauding family. Miss Reed leaned in, whispering fiercely to Mia, Did you sign his name? Mia stared back, her mouth hanging open. The fight visibly left Miss Reed as she sank back into her chair. Objection noted for the record. Harrison gave a slight nod. Shall we continue? Miss Reed cleared her throat, struggling to regain her footing. Mr. Harrison, my client is eager to resolve this, but we deny these allegations. The expenses were all legitimate project costs. Stop. Harrison's voice was like ice. Before you commit to that fiction, you're going to look at what we have. Our negotiation begins asterisk after asterisk. You've reviewed the findings of my forensic accountant. Mia leaned forward. This is insane. Elena, I'm your sister. I finally met her gaze. And you're the woman who slept with my husband. Harrison opened a heavy binder. Miss Vargas, I strongly advise you to listen. He laid down the first report. Corporate account charge, February 3rd, $35,000. He laid down another and another. Soon, 16 statements were fanned out across the table, each one bearing her forged signature. More than $300,000 siphoned from his firm's capital accounts. Miss Albright reads them, her expression tightening. David continues. All funneled to shell entities like Vance Strategic Solutions or Apex Creative Group. No staff, no headquarters, just mail drops in Delaware. Julia's voice is a faint murmur. Those were for market research. David pushes a new file across the conference table. Network logs from Innovate Dynamics. Your executive terminal was used to generate all of these fraudulent payment requests, often just minutes after you researched offshore banking laws. Miss Albright's jaw is set. David cues a projector. Here are the state registration papers for Vance Strategic. Founder, Julia Vance. Primary officer, Julia Vance. Date of filing, May 3rd. You established the fraudulent company in the morning and billed his firm for a non existent service that same day. Real vendors use secure invoicing platforms. You simply invented everything. Miss Albright leans toward her client. Is this accurate? I occasionally used my work machine for private matters. David is unyielding. Let's review your digital trail. He projects a chain of text messages. You're here under the guise of Apex Global, creating a ghost correspondence with yourself to build a fake client history. Her lawyer displays the domain registration. You secured the Apex domain name 2 days prior. The IP address is a direct match to your condo in Miami. Your service provider has already confirmed your identity. A total of 89 messages. You built entire conversations with yourself, acting as an investment consultant. Ilara presses her fingers to her temples. You invented entire client portfolios? That's a textbook case of wire fraud, Miss Albright states, showing the bank statements on the monitor. And let's trace the funds. Project Capital disbursements to Apex Global. Within 48 hours, the money is wired again to a private account in Vancouver ending in 6620. Your account. She highlights transfer after transfer. Immediate offshore movements, a classic embezzlement strategy. Ilara closes her notebook. The quiet snap echoes like a gavel in the tense room. Miss Albright's voice becomes steel. That covers the financial misconduct. Now let's discuss the personal betrayal. She lifts a second binder, this one titled Thorn Development Forgeries, in sharp block letters. Ilara's hands start to shake. 4 separate applications for development loans, all submitted with forged personal guarantees from Julian to leverage company assets. Ilara's face goes pale. Miss Albright slides the binder across the table. Please review them. She opens it. The first page shows 2 signatures side by side. On the left is Julian's genuine signature from their original partnership agreement. The J is fluid, confident. On the monitor, the signature from a loan document signed last spring. It was a good copy, but stiff. The L was too perfect. The N was hesitant. These documents put our entire company at risk, Albright explains, gesturing to the screen. All to funnel capital to shell companies your client owned. She displays all 4 signature comparisons next to each other. She didn't just defraud the business, she used Julian's name to indent the legacy he built. Albright hands a thick report to Serafina's attorney. We hired a digital forensics team. 50 pages. The conclusion, a 99% probability of digital forgery on all 4 documents. Clear evidence of signature cloning, unnatural pixelation. She likely lifted a real signature from a public filing, then used Photoshop to place it on the loan applications. Serafina's lawyer reads, his expression hardening. Albright continues, her voice unwavering. Your client used her CFO access to execute this. The very same workstation used to set up the shell companies was used for these forgeries. Serafina finally speaks, her voice a whisper. I would never, I lean forward, speaking for the first time. You are trying to dismantle our future. No, Ilara, I swear. Albright cuts her off. We have more. She clicks open one last folder. In January, you tried to frame a junior accountant, creating false server logs to link him to the offshore transfers. You told Julian that his wife's own friend was plotting his ruin, Albright adds, but our team analyzed the actual server data. The fake logs originated from your IP, not the accountant's. You were framing an innocent man. Serafina is now sobbing, her composure shattered. I was desperate. I was jealous of what you both had, jealous enough to forge 4 major loan agreements and orchestrate an elaborate frame-up, Albright says coldly. She closes the binder. Desperation is not a defense for systematic sabotage. Albright dims the lights and aims her monitor toward us. The screen shows a messaging app, not a legal document. The dates are recent. She starts to scroll. The room is dead silent. My husband's name is at the top. Serafina's name is right next to it. Friendly messages, plans for secret lunches, private jokes. Albright clicks once, and the final piece of evidence fills the screen. Her voice is flat, and this explains the motive. The affair was laid bare in a long chain of texts, her urging him, insulting me, making plans for a life that didn't include me. She highlighted one message Serafina sent a month ago. She knows it read, "She's asking questions. We need to speed this up." Julian's response was brief. "Be patient." Her last text on the screen was brutal. "I'm done with patience. Once she's lost in diapers and formula, she won't suspect a thing. And then the firm will be ours." She stopped scrolling. The conversation ended there. A crushing silence filled the room, broken only by Serafina's quiet sobs. Albright turned off the display. "Direct communication from the other party," she said. "Verified and undeniable." She looked at Julian. "Mister Thorn, do you have anything to say?" Julian finally met Ilara's eyes, his expression a cold mask. His voice was hollow. "A few weeks ago, I found the unauthorized transfers. She admitted she took the money, saying it was to build our new life." He slid his own phone toward Ilara's lawyer. "This is not my life. This was never what I wanted. I'm filing for divorce. We are also pursuing criminal charges." She copied Julian's digital signature, embezzled funds from company accounts, and used our firm's credit to finance her schemes. Albright looked at Julian. "Were you aware your chief financial officer owned a penthouse in Vancouver through a shell company?" "No, I had no idea." "The law may be one thing, but our company charter is clear. That property is 50% mine." She hid it from me entirely. Julian turned to Serafina, his voice finally cracking with rage. "You wrecked our company. You betrayed my wife. You used my reputation." "For what? A better view? Was it worth it?" Serafina was weeping, unable to meet his eyes. "Julian, I am so sorry. We can... No, it's over." He stood up from the table. "Lara, I am sorry I didn't see this. Miss Albright, you will have my full cooperation." He walked out of the room without looking back. The heavy door of the conference room slammed shut. Serafina buried her face in her hands, her body shaking with sobs. Her lawyer began to silently gather his papers. "Miss Albright, I need a moment with my client." Albright gave a curt nod. "You have 5 minutes. The office next door is available." Her attorney helped Serafina stand. She was so shaken she nearly fell. They left. As their door clicked shut, Albright turned to me. "It's over for her. He knows it. What's next? She takes our deal or she faces prison. There's no other way." My friend Maya squeezed my arm. We waited in the heavy, charged silence. The ticking clock on the wall sounded deafening. 6 minutes later, the door opened. Her lawyer returned by himself. Serafina was gone. "My client accepts all of your conditions, full restitution, surrendering her company shares, the deed to the penthouse." His voice was empty, defeated. Miss Albright nodded. "A wise decision." Mr. Thorne cleared his throat. "My client has one condition. You agree not to file criminal charges. She gives back the money. She leaves the firm. She vanishes." "That is our proposal." Miss Albright looked at me. "The final call is yours, Ilara." Every person in the room was looking at me. Mr. Thorne waited. "No criminal prosecution. Do you agree?" I looked at my lawyer. She leaned in. "Let's review all the terms before Mrs. Thorne replies." Mr. Thorne agreed. Total repayment of $1,500,000, forfeiture of her partnership stake, valued at $750,000, the Vancouver penthouse. Her resignation is effective now. A total of $2.25 million plus the property. Miss Albright made a note. The payment schedule is 60 days via 2-wire transfers. Miss Albright jotted it down. Julian's voice was like ice. "The condo keys are on this table by 5. Your resignation is effective immediately. You will sign a permanent non-disclosure agreement. We handle this quietly, or the alternative is public disgrace." Amelia balked. "Those were gifts from Leo." "Gifts," Julian countered, "bought with my son's future and my grandchild's security." His tone hardened. This is not a negotiation. A life of quiet obscurity is a generous price for what you have done. Amelia looked to her lawyer, who just shook his head. She needed a moment. As she left, Julian turned to me. Chloe, your thoughts? I rested a hand on my swollen belly. Ruining her completely? It feels wrong. She's my family. She tried to ruin ours, Leo cut in, his voice raw. He knew I was pregnant, Chloe. He knew, and he still did this with her. Julian's expression softened slightly. She used your kindness against you. A thick silence fell. If she signs everything and disappears, this ends, Julian stated. But if she contacts us again, ever, the agreement is void. That was the offer. I met his gaze. Then she gets one chance, and that is all. The door clicked open minutes later. Amelia walked back in, her face a pale mask of fury, her eyes fixed on the floor. She dropped into the chair. Her lawyer cleared his throat. My client agrees to the terms. Julian slid a slim portfolio across the table. We need more than words. He tapped the document. Clause 1, the non-disclosure. Clause 2, relinquishment of all property. Clause 3, termination of employment. Final page, your signature. Amelia, sign here. Her hand shook with rage as she scrawled her name. The ink bled from the pressure. Julian pushed the document to me. Chloe, my own signature was fluid and precise, a clean cut. Julian signed as a witness. This will be filed with our family trust. The condo keys will be with our courier tomorrow. The watch is due now. Amelia's head shot up. Now? That was the condition of our silence, Julian said, holding out his hand. Due upon signing. Her lawyer gave a short nod. Amelia's voice was a venomous whisper. Chloe, if you would just let me tell you, no, but you need to understand why I said no. We were colleagues, Chloe. I mentored you. I stood, my voice tight. You lost the privilege of speaking my name. The conference room fell silent. I stared directly at her. My voice was ice. It wasn't just the firm's money. I could have moved past that, seen it as a moment of weakness, a horrible error, but you tried to tear down our entire practice. You fabricated expense reports 16 times, rerouted client payments, and created a false trail pointing to our project manager. You went to my husband, Leo, and claimed I was mishandling the waterfront account. You deliberately tried to destroy my reputation. Chloe choked out. I was in a tough spot. You were precise. You planned every hidden transaction, set up shell accounts, and built a convincing narrative that isn't a tough spot. It's pure treachery. Leo vouched for you. He made you a senior partner because he saw potential, because he valued our history. He has shouldered the burden of this fraud for months. My voice trembled. The anxiety nearly broke him. He was meant to be celebrating our baby, our future. I steadied myself. I'm not blaming you for his choices, but you infected the happiest time of our lives with your poison. You filled it with deceit. You didn't just betray a business. You betrayed a friendship. You targeted my work, my husband, and my family. Now you have nothing. Your license, your reputation, your partnership, your condo, all gone. I leaned in. Tell me, was it worth it? Did that luxury condo ever feel like home? Chloe just sat there, weeping. I will never forgive you. Your apologies are worthless. I want you out of my life. I faced her lawyer, make sure she grasps this. One missed payment and I notify the authorities. Any contact with me or Leo, I notify the authorities. If she comes near our home or the office, I notify the authorities. This is her only chance to repay what she stole and disappear. I glanced at my own counsel. I'm finished here. I walked to the door. Pausing, I looked back. We were like family. You burned that to the ground. Don't ever forget that. I left. My sister, Olivia, followed me out. We descended in the elevator without a word. When we reached the lobby, my phone buzzed. It was a text from my attorney. Transfer complete. $1.5 million. 4:58 p.m. She did it. The repayment has begun. I just looked at the text. 4:58. 2 minutes to spare. She pushed it right to the edge. Olivia read it over my shoulder. You won. I was speechless. I just nodded. A year of nagging suspicion, a month of quiet investigation, and a 5-hour meeting. It was done. That evening, I sat in Olivia's apartment nursing a cup of herbal tea. The room was quiet, but my mind was screaming. Olivia was on the couch opposite me, watching me intently. How are you, really? She asked softly. I don't know. Empty, vindicated, enraged. All of it at once. That's understandable. You've been running on pure adrenaline for weeks. You're about to crash. I keep picturing Leo hiding this from me, gathering evidence while acting like everything was fine. He'd come home from the firm, hold me, and never breathe a word. He was shielding you and the baby. I know, but he shouldn't have faced that alone. We're partners in everything. He wanted to protect you from the hurt, so he carried it all himself. The betrayal from someone he mentored, the rage, the crushing weight of knowing our friend was actively working to ruin us. A heavy silence settled between us. I finally sipped my tea, but its warmth did nothing. I'm just afraid this has fractured something between us permanently, I whispered. My doctor is constantly warning me about stress. But this, an affair, embezzlement from our own firm, a total betrayal. What if this whole nightmare, him keeping it all a secret, has damaged more than our bank account? Olivia's tone was firm. You can't let your thoughts go there. It's not healthy. I know, but it's hard not to. I put the mug down. Leo made a choice. He chose to handle it quietly. He chose to have undeniable proof before he ever told me. He did it all to protect his family. And you saw it through so to the end. I did. I hope he recognizes that. Finally, the tears started, not from grief, but from sheer, bone deep exhaustion. After 3 weeks of being stretched so thin, I just snapped. Olivia came over and simply held me as I cried. It's over, Amelia. It's finally over. The next 60 days were a blur. Life moved forward. I managed architectural projects, met with clients, and kept up with my prenatal appointments. But underneath it all, I was on a countdown, waiting for that last payment. On day one, the first $1.5 million hit the account. I had watched my phone all day, convinced Chloe would fail to pay, and this would escalate. When the confirmation text arrived at 4:58, just 2 minutes before the deadline, I felt like I could breathe again. Then, in mid-May, day 61, my lawyer called. It's done, Amelia. The final wire from Chloe's account just cleared. The last $750,000. I placed a hand on my growing stomach. You are free, she said. Chloe was gone. The affair was exposed. My new life was beginning. This was never about revenge. It was about securing our future. That same afternoon, I found a listing for a gorgeous townhouse in Beacon Hill. I called the agent and made a full cash offer, transferring the money from the settlement account. The confirmation email felt like laying a new foundation. A home for my son, paid for by the woman who nearly destroyed us. There's a certain justice in that. My sister Olivia came over for dinner that Friday. We were making it a weekly ritual. She seemed unusually quiet. I ran into someone today, she said, poking at her salad. It was Chloe at the coffee shop. I put my glass down. And what did she have to say for herself? She got fired from that new firm. Leo's divorce settlement took everything she had. She's moving back to Ohio to live with her parents. Fitting. Olivia watched me. She asked if you would ever consider talking to her. I told her that was highly unlikely anytime soon. The board is still reviewing the unauthorized project expenditures, Olivia added. He violated his duties as a partner. It's separate from the divorce, but he could lose his architect's license. Do you think he will? I asked. It's a real possibility. His reputation is in tatters. He has only himself to blame for that. I get it, Olivia said softly. I told Chloe that making excuses isn't the same as taking ownership. She just kept blaming her ambition. That sounds like her issue, not mine. Maybe in a few years, if she ever shows genuine remorse. But I'm not waiting around for it. April, 4 months after the divorce was finalized. I turned my laptop to show Olivia during dinner. The screen displayed a website. The Keystone Grant for Women in Architecture. It helps women launch their own firms. I'm funding the start with $100,000, I explained. It offers 3 things. First, seed money for new practices. Second, stipends for childcare. And third, a mentorship network for women restarting their careers after a crisis. Olivia's eyes welled up. Leo's betrayal gave me this new purpose. I'm building something good from the wreckage. My lawyer joined the board. Even Olivia contributed $5,000. The first ever grant went to a young designer from Austin. My business partner forced me out after I told him I was pregnant. I thought my dream was over, she told me. This grant is my second chance. I hugged her, thinking of my own son. We were turning private heartbreak into public good. Tonight, I am sitting in his newly painted nursery. The ultrasound photo of my son stands on the dresser. Beside it, tucked in a drawer, is my wedding photo, face down. It serves as a reminder of the truth. Leo was a liar. He lived a double life with a secret plan. But secrets always come to light. A strange impulse had me checking our shared design server that morning. Some call it a woman's intuition. I call it a mother's instinct, protecting her child from a threat she couldn't yet see. When I found the architectural plans for a weekend sanctuary in Vermont, co designed with Chloe, the betrayal nearly shattered me. But it also awakened a strength I didn't know I had. This was never just about a failed marriage, it was about protecting my son's birthright. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't ignore that inner alarm. The worst betrayals come from those we trust implicitly. Trust has to be earned. Forgiveness is a choice, but accountability is mandatory. When your gut is screaming that something is wrong, listen. That feeling is there to protect you. If my experience speaks to you, please comment on what justice means to you after a betrayal. Share this with someone who needs this message and subscribe for more true stories. Believe in your own power and always trust your gut.